I'm usually very selective. I have standards, I know what I want, and people nod like they think that's strength. But every time I start liking someone, something tightens in my chest. Like, it might not quite be a strength, but I think that it's more limiting me in the dating world because, my brain doesn't celebrate, "Oh, I found somebody." It starts scanning. It goes into a straight detective mode. Like, "Who are you? What have you done? What are you hiding?" So, it's whispering, "What if you're settling? What if you're settling for somebody that's not even who they really are or portraying themselves to be someone else?"
She said she's selective. She said she has standards. She said she knows what she wants. And on the surface, that sounds strong. It sounds disciplined. It sounds self aware. It sounds like a woman who has thought things through. But when I hear that, I also hear somebody getting in front of the judgment before it arrives. Because when she opens with, I have standards, she's not just describing herself, she's defending herself. She's making sure you understand this is not desperation, this is not confusion, this is not loneliness, this is strategy, this is intentional, this is controlled. And maybe some of that is true. But sometimes when she says, I know what I want, what she really means is, I'm afraid to choose wrong. Sometimes when she says, I'm selective, what she really means is, I do not trust myself to get attached without getting hurt. Sometimes when she says, I have standards, what she's really doing is giving fear a better outfit. That's what interests me because confidence and protection can sound exactly the same in the beginning. They use the same words, they wear the same face, they both sound calm, they both sound clear, but one is coming from peace, the other is coming from self-protection. And when she says it that way, I don't just hear confidence, I hear a woman trying to make sure the story sounds clean before the messier truth has a chance to speak. I hear somebody saying, please understand, this is my choice. Because if she can call it standards, then it sounds powerful. If she can call it selectiveness, then it sounds intentional. If she can say she knows what she wants, then maybe she doesn't have to say the harder thing, which is that she may be scared of regret, scared of vulnerability, scared of investing in the wrong person and having to live with that choice. That's the part people usually don't say out loud. They say standards. They may be feeling panic. They say discernment. They may be feeling fear. And that doesn't make her fake, it makes her human. A lot of people would rather sound selective than admit they are overwhelmed. A lot of people would rather sound intentional than admit they are scared. Because once you say, I have standards, nobody has to see the private thought underneath it. What if I get this wrong? What if I misread him? What if I let my guard down and regret it? That's what I hear underneath what she said. That's the subtext.
And then the apps make it all worse. The dating apps, social media, there's always another face waiting, but at the same time, that face waiting or that face that's current, you don't know if that is who they actually are or if that's who they just are showing you on camera. Another resume disguised as a personality. Another man who looks safer, sharper, strategic, but might not be. Maybe they just look that way. Having options feels like leverage, but not being able to trust any options makes it even harder here in this dating world. And, if I'm the one choosing and not being chosen, then that leaves a whole other spectrum of the side of things than, you know, being chosen and someone choosing you. Like, I can leave before anyone leaves me, but committing to one person and putting all your trust and all of your effort into that one person, wasting all this time, possibly wasting all this time.
Then she says, I can leave before anyone leaves me. That's one of the clearest lines in the whole thing. Because now the subtext isn't hidden anymore. She's telling you the exit matters to her. She's telling you she feels safer when she controls abandonment before it happens. That is not selectiveness. That is not standards. That is a person rehearsing loss in advance so they can survive it before it arrives. Can't get fired if you quit. That's the energy. And then she says, when the other doors close, it gets quiet. That's huge because now we see what the options were doing for her. They were not just giving her choices, they were giving her noise. They were giving her distraction. They were giving her something to look at, something to scroll through, something to keep her from having to sit still with one real emotional reality. Because when the other doors close, it's not just quiet outside, it gets quiet inside. And that's where fear gets louder. Then she says, no emergency validation. That may be the most honest line in the whole piece, because that is exactly what a lot of people use options for: emergency validation, backup attention, spare applause, something in the wings in case the main thing doesn't work out. So when she says that out loud, now we're not even talking about men anymore. We're talking about ego regulation. We're talking about the need to know that if one thing falls apart, something else can still remind her she's wanted. And that's the dark little joke sitting underneath all of this. She says she wants connection, but she also wants a small emotional support staff in the background just in case. Nothing stabilizes a mood like 3 unread compliments. That's the subtext of part 2 to me. She says it's options. She says it's leverage. She says it's about choosing. But underneath all of that, what she's really saying is, I do not feel safe unless I have a backup plan.
And when other doors close, it gets quiet. No backup plan glowing in my DMs, no emergency validation waiting on standby. I don't even really know if I turned down the wrong person. If maybe I'm turning down people that I think are fake and they might not be fake, or am I accepting the ones that are fake? The catfish thing, that's a whole nother topic. But if it fails, I can't blame timing. I have to admit that I gambled. I wasted a little time, spent a little time, money, and I lost. And at 30, mistakes feel permanent. So I stay halfway invested unless someone wants to throw something at me that's 10 times fuller than what I'm throwing at them to show me that that I'm not investing in some script or some, plastic of a person, some, portrayal of this perfect person because they know how to reel somebody in, but close enough to feel something, far enough to escape if it gets real, or should I say fake. I call it independence. Maybe I'm just addicted to the comfort of almost, or of knowing that I'm not sacrificing all of me for something that is not true or doesn't have integrity. At the end of the day, infinite options make doubt feel smarter than commitment. Not that I like, dating around and having all these backup options, and that feels a little like snaky in a sense. But, doubt feels safer than being chosen and choosing back. And when someone chooses me and goes out of their way to show me that I'm the person that they want, then it makes things different. But when it's the beginning of everything and I'm jumping into it, it's just, is it really worth the sacrifice in the beginning for all those people? It's like, what, 90% maybe, or, over half of the people that you end up dating are going to be not real at the end of the day. So ask yourself, is it worth it? Is this person worth it in the end of the day?
She said when the other doors close, it gets quiet. And that's the moment everything shifts, because now we're not talking about options anymore. We're talking about what those options were covering up. The noise is gone, the distractions are gone, and now it's just her and whatever she actually feels about the one person in front of her. Then she says there's no backup plan glowing in her DMs, no emergency validation waiting on standby. That's not casual language. That's precise. That tells you those options weren't just options, they were regulation. They were insurance. They were a way to keep her ego stable in case something real didn't work out. So when those disappear, what's left isn't just silence, it's exposure. That's the most honest moment in the entire thing. Because almost is safe. Almost doesn't require a full commitment. Almost doesn't force a real outcome. Almost keeps the fantasy alive without demanding the risk of reality. Almost never embarrasses you. Almost never makes you fully accountable. And then she lands on this idea that infinite options make doubt feel smarter than commitment. That's the justification. That's where she turns fear into logic. If doubt is smart, then staying uncertain feels responsible. If commitment is risky, then avoiding it feels wise. And finally, doubt feels safer than being chosen and choosing back. So she stays in doubt, not because she doesn't want connection, but because doubt lets her keep control.